Well, I'm glad to say now that joining me is Benedict Rogers. He's the Chief Executive of Hong Kong Watch. Welcome, Benedict. Were you surprised that these two Supreme Court judges have decided to remove themselves from the Hong Kong Court of Appeal?
Well, thank you. I wasn't surprised, and in fact, I think they should have done so quite a while ago, but I very much welcome it. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, and the Foreign Secretary and the Justice Secretary's support for it is very welcome. There are, of course, some other retired judges who've, as I understand it, said they're going to stay on, and there are also Australian and Canadian judges that appear to be staying on, and I hope they will reconsider their position in light of the two Supreme Court judges.
Yeah, I was reading a little today about that, Benedict, and they're basically saying that they feel because they're not serving judges, they're retired judges, that they should stay on and try to deal with the issues there. You think that's sending out perhaps a mixed message?
I think it is sending a mixed message. I think it would have been much better if all the foreign judges had left together, and that would have sent a very strong, united message. But of course, for the retired judges, it is their decision. The government can't force them to withdraw. But I do hope they would reconsider.
I suppose what they're trying to say is if we stay, we can then construe this legislation in a way which will limit the power of China and try to mitigate the worst excesses of the legislation that is in place. Do you understand their rationale for staying on?
I think I can understand that to a certain extent, but and that was why we didn't call for the withdrawal of the judges when the national security law was first imposed, because we wanted to see whether they could have exactly that kind of mitigating effect. But it's clear over the last year that the hugely draconian law has been used, and not just the national security law, but some other laws as well, have been used to pursue political opponents, dissidents, pro-democracy activists in a relentless way. And things like bail, for example, which used to be a absolutely normal part of Hong Kong's legal system, has been denied to pretty much all the national security law prisoners. And so many political prisoners have been in jail now for a long time and haven't even had their trial. They've been in prison pre-trial. So all these reasons, I think it's clear now that the presence of foreign judges is giving credibility to a system that has rapidly lost credibility.
So, Benedict, just for our viewers and listeners, you're someone who has lived in Hong Kong. You know Hong Kong very well. You worked there. Just describe the changes that have been made, not only because of this national security law, which has been talked about quite a bit, which came in to force in 2020, but even before then. What has changed in Hong Kong? I've been to Hong Kong. When I was in Hong Kong, it was a thriving economy. It was doing really well. Have things changed over a short period of time?
They've changed very rapidly and very dramatically. As you say, Hong Kong used to be not just a thriving economy, but actually one of the most open, freest cities in Asia. And it was handed over to China in 1997 with the promise that its way of life, its basic freedoms, the rule of law would be protected at least for the first 50 years from the handover, so at least until 2047. And that's under an international treaty, the Sino-British Joint Declaration. In the last few years, I guess it was starting probably 10 years or so ago, but it's accelerated in the last 3 or 4 years. Pretty much all of Hong Kong's freedoms now have been dismantled. Press freedom, independent media has been shut down. The right to protest has been denied. Academic freedom is threatened. All the basic freedoms now are being torn up. And not only actually in Hong Kong. I myself, first of all, was denied entry to Hong Kong in 2017 and was probably the first foreigner to experience that. But then more recently, I personally and the organization I've co-founded, Hong Kong Watch, have been formally threatened by the Hong Kong police under the national security law using their extraterritoriality powers. So they demanded that we take down our website, which is it's a UK-based organization. I'm a British citizen. So the reach of the clampdown in Hong Kong extends even beyond its borders.
And I was really shocked to see as well that people were sending your mother misleading information just to try and make you feel uncomfortable. I mean, I couldn't believe that sort of thing was going on, but I find that incredible. I mean, this is a country that was a centre, as you say, for industry and for the economy. And now you're saying that, and absolutely the case, that people are not even being given bail when they've been charged with offences and very basic rights that one would expect elsewhere. I mean, clearly, have we forgotten about Hong Kong? What more should we be doing about this issue? And particularly when we look at what's happening in other parts of the world, what is it that we should be doing to try and raise these issues?
Well, I would say that the government has certainly improved its response to the Hong Kong situation in the last couple of years. I give the government a lot of credit for the very generous and courageous BNO, British National Overseas Scheme, that provides a lifeline to hundreds of thousands of Hong Kongers who either need to get out or want to get out because they see no future. And the government has also stepped up its language. Liz Truss has made a number of very robust statements. But I think the one thing that the government has not yet done that it should is to impose sanctions, targeted sanctions on officials in the Beijing regime and the Hong Kong government responsible for tearing up an international treaty and tearing up Hong Kong's freedoms. Because I think if there are no consequences for China's actions, if they're allowed to get away with what they've done with impunity, they'll just be emboldened to be even more repressive at home and even more aggressive beyond the borders of China. So sanctions, I think, is the one act that the British government hasn't yet taken that it should.
And just finally, Benedict, obviously we've been watching very closely what's been happening in Ukraine in terms of the Russian invasion and what have you. I mean, from your expertise, having lived in Hong Kong, what should we read into the fact that China hasn't been saying very much in relation to all of that?
Well, I think possibly China may have been caught by surprise by the speed and strength of the Western response to the Russian invasion. I think Xi Jinping, like Vladimir Putin, may have calculated that we would be weaker, slower, less united. And I think the ability of Western countries to come together, the about turn from Germany, for example, the effectiveness of the sanctions we've imposed on Russia, as well as the fact that Putin's plan in Ukraine is not going according to plan. I think all of those things will have made leaders in Beijing just pause for thought. I don't think we should take it as a sign that they've changed their backing for Putin or their hostility to the West, but I think it will have made them think and recalculate.
Benedict, thank you. Fascinating as always to talk to you.